So tonight it is my pleasure to introduce Lukas Fúster. But before talking about him, I would like to offer a brief description of his work context. Lukas is from Paraguay. He's an architect working there. And during most of the 20th century, Paraguay's journey was characterized by dictatorial and non-democratic governments that took over the country for almost 6 decades, from 1940 to 1989. So that political situation had an enormous negative impact on all aspects of society. And Paraguay's architectural development was also affected by this system. The infrastructure level, for example, the country's late industrialization process restricted access to only imported, standardized, and modern building materials and technologies to only a minority of the population that could afford it. So in some places, this is applicable even today. So most of the population are self-builders by necessity and therefore by nature. And they have to deal with available materials such as limestone, wood, bricks, and ceramic roof tiles. Altogether, this shapes a vernacular architecture that is characterized by its simplicity and austerity. Since the 1990s, though, when the democratic process started, a generation of Paraguayan architects have sought to take advantage of the elemental nature of these vernacular precedents to make their own architecture and to put Paraguay in the map, in the world map. They started developing an architecture based on local building traditions, and they were fueled by a curiosity and eagerness to create a new identity of Paraguayan architecture with whatever they had at hand. Lukas is actually part of what I will call a second wave of these young architects who are right now in their late 20s, 30s, and early 40s, and whose work focuses on the search for a new identity of Paraguayan architecture. Lukas' work is not an accident of creativity or the outcome of eccentricity, but the consequence of a material reality and a determined exploration to create divergent solutions using the materials we have at hand in Paraguay. I believe that his creativity and knowledge of construction processes questions and contradict pre-established rules in a cultural context that is shaped by decades, if not centuries, of dictatorial ideologies. Lukas, he started his architecture studies in Paraguay at the same school where I did my bachelor's, the School of Architecture, Design and Arts at the National University. Then he traveled to Italy for a study abroad program at the Istituto Universitario di Arquitectura di Venezia, and finally finished his bachelor's in architecture in Buenos Aires at the Universidad del Salvador, graduating in 2008. Since that, he collaborates at Laboratorio de Arquitectura by Paraguayan architect Javier Corbalán. Since 2003, actually, he works with Javier Corbalán, and started his own practice in Asunción in 2008. In 2013, Javier Corbalán and Lukas founded Asimétrico, where they work together in urban design projects. Lukas is a faculty at the School of Architecture, Design and Arts, in the National University of Asunción since 2012. He has taught different workshops in Paraguay, Ecuador, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Bolivia, and Italy. His work has been recognized in 2014 and 2016 at the Ibero-American Biennale of Architecture and Urbanism. And in 2019, Lukas was a curator and one of the main organizers of the same Biennale in Asunción. I'm very proud to be here today to listen to Lukas, and please join me to welcome him tonight. Thank you.
Too much for me, Julio. First, I want to really say thank you to Marcus, to Julio, to Murad, we know just now, to Pamela, and all the people that is in the organization of these lectures. First, have to be in presence, no, in USA, because of this, we need to make like that. But I'm really happy, no, because the interest of your university in the work we have here. So, very thank you. Okay, and thank you for the audience, for the students, for the friends and families that are going to listen. I'm going to share. Okay. I call the lecture another budget because I really like to construct, utilize use the language to construct meanings, no, to construct new words. Sometimes I write wrong on purposely, because I think with a little force, you can change one letter maybe, and you can say a lot of other things. No, I write like this, another budget, because sounds another budget, but also can be budget, like James Joyce, when write the Thinning and Wake, the critic says he write in English, no, in an English note. Also can be zero budget, or a phrase that is no budGET, that is a positive or double negative, no, because say no, but is the meaning is a positive thing. I use budget because it's the word that we use in architecture. I don't know if it's the same thing in USA, but budget is equal to resources. For every, I synthesize that in every work of architecture, we have minimum these resources, no, the needs of the client, of the community, of the people, the knowledge, where we are the architecture, the academic, the materials, and the workforce or the labor. We are accustomed to the known of this, the known needs, for example, no? I have a house, I have a building, I need an office. Or the known knowledge with the university, or the known materials that have all the industry work to these materials that are very known for all of us, and also in an economic and a financial system, and also the labors, the non-labors, no, the carpenter, also the masonry, etc. And there are other things that are important for me, or I search and research about the unknown needs and the unknown knowledge, these materials that are not common in used in architecture, or the labors that are not available. And also there are other resources in the works that are intangibles. No, I want to speak about this kind of things in the words I will show you. I will speak in Spanglish. This is an example because I only change one letter. It's obviously I speak Spanish, but with other letter is possible to know that I want to say other things. No, I think the language is for to communicate and not necessary have to be the structure language. With with a joke of word, we can say a lot of things. And these are some concepts that I used to, I think, and I use it in other lectures, but I want to use this one, impossibilities, because some projects that I like to get involved are impossible, no? Or seems to be impossible, but the English let this kind of word that the possibilities are inside, no? Inside the impossible projects. I will start with the Plaza of Our Dreams, the Plaza de Nuestros Sueños. This is a project I really like. It's a project in a very in a neighborhood that is close to Asunción, in the periferia, with a lot of poverty, and they show me that kind of thing, no? How they use the public space, no? For me, it was so difficult to think, to propose something public when they are masters in public space. They have everything, all his life in the public space. The animals, the laundry, the clothes, and have only one plaza, only one square for 30,000 people. This plaza, the equipment of this plaza, are some tires, volleyball court, football camp, and nothing more. There is a hammock without a hammock, and this is the place, no, a part of the place. These spaces, empty spaces, are private. This is the plaza. This is a church and the school. And this is the industry. Really, they don't have a public space. They don't know how to use it, this public space, but they use it all the streets, the sidewalks. Their lives are very public, are very involved with all the community. This is a situation of this plaza, this square, have one small football court, one big football camp, and then there are two volleyball courts. And contact me the association, Global Infancia Association, and the Christian Children Fund of Canada, with $20,000 budget, and they asked for me to do a work for the first childhood, about 30 meters square, like that. No? This is the expectative of the a place to the first childhood that is with security, when they can play without any danger of the of the balloons, of the football, volleyball, etc. And so we make a participatory process with a lot of techniques, and most of the children draw this one, no? This is a typical slide. Have a stair, we have platform, we have hammocks, and this is the imaginary of the children of this neighborhood. And we propose, with the same budget, utilize the 1/3 of the plaza, organize the courts with basically two materials, waste ceramic and tires. Because this is a map, this is a city of Asunción, this is a Paraguay River, and this is the city or the neighborhood of Remancito. Really, it's a city, but politically, it's a neighborhood of Villa Ayes. Are 10 kilometers between. These orange points are the ceramic industry. The black points are places where we can take tires. When I went to the neighborhood, I see that the people it's usual to use the ceramic waste in their houses, no, like that, because it's a place with a lot of water. When the river is going up, this city is a flood in the city. And this is a photography of a tire cemetery in Alto Paraná, in the north Paraguay, in the east north. There is another important thing. In Paraguay, before the COVID, we have the dengue epidemic. Here are the numbers, no? The quantity of people contagious, and in 2018 was a national emergency. And most of the mosquito likes the tires because grow in where placed on when the water is quiet, estancada, still water. And this is there are numbers that I researched. It's a number more or less 15 million of abandoned tires in Paraguay, because the car park are of 2 million, and the car park of Asunción are 800,000. More or less, a tire lifetime is a 3-year. 4 units, 50% that make the change. We have this one, these numbers, and this is 15 million is the number in a decade, no? More or less. And the tire have approximately 500 years of life. So the more interesting thing is to think a plaza to Mad Max, no? A plaza that can still for a long time. And this is the strategy, no? We expand the imaginary of the children, literally. We spend 83 meters. We make a platform of 83 meters to construct shadows. And with the same money, $20,000, we try to make 500 meters of pavement floor with is a sidewalk that doesn't exist, and 83 meters of platform of place for the children. We used 1,500 tires here, and approximately 500 of square meters of floor, no, of the ceramic industry waste. We make a lot of work with the children, thinking about the hammocks for different ages, with a lot of techniques, models, also scale 1-to-1 of this model. We think it was very important because with this, they in the future they can make the maintenance of the place, no? Other place, or we think all together, and then we put all in a plan where find the place, the effective place to each one. And this is the result. This is a work from the 2014, I think. How this is not an invent, no? This Gaudí used to make the train with the Trencadís a lot of works. We reuse these concepts of a lot of techniques in the world, and adapt the materials we have close by. And this photo, this image, I really like, because there is the other resources I talk about are the materials, but also is the shadow. The shadow construct all the project with the people using the plaza. We didn't know how to build with tires. This is algo. This was something new for the laborers, for the architects, for the material was new. Was all new for us. Was all unknown. How I tell you before. We didn't make any desperdicio, didn't waste. All these iron tubes are calculated because as was the only material we buy, were calculated to use it in the, how to say, the commercial measure, no? And the form of the platform is correspond to the structure form to going well, because it's a very light structure and very long structure. We think that the platform, that the long platform with a lot of place and the long shadow was very, very necessary to this place. It's in the Chaco Paraguayo. There is a lot of hot here and not a lot of trees. With the horse, I was very happy, because there is a place to the animals, to the people, to everyone who need a shadow and a place to play, no? Another work is this. If you have a question, let me know. This is it's my house. It was one of my first works. It's my house and used to be my workshop. And I think if I have to describe, it's like a collage, no? There are a lot of things, and there is this is a work that never finished. It's constantly changing. Here you have all bricks, new bricks, all sheet metal, all house, plants that very huge plants like this mango tree, and other description is like it's like a projected destruction, no? Because I doesn't have a lot of money to construct this, and I had to reutilize a lot of material, and the existing house was a chorizo house, how we call in Paraguay, in Latin America. Because of these are sausage, I think it's called in English. This because the rooms are all connected between. I think the most important thing to do in an old house is not the aesthetic, to maintain the aesthetic thing. I really only maintain the facade, the front. But the most important thing of this old house, it was the typology, no? The typology of have all the spaces connected. So I enhanced the typology with the demolition, with destruction of these walls to make a fluid space. This is, I think, is the most important thing, because this really take the typology and take to another place in the future with a contemporary way of life. I had to change the roof because it was in the bad conditions, and I changed the inclination, the bending. And when I make my house, I think a lot of with Gordon Mataclar, and because he really make projected destruction, no? This is the strategy, no? The 30% of pending. I changed from 30 to 15% with a hyperbolic paraboloid. No, the roof is like this, with an iron rod structure with a variable section. No, are 24 different sections. Are these ones suspenders to take the difference of the roof, of the suspenders, and the section is like that, no? With the old house, the roof was here, was impossible to going up with a mezzanino. With the new roof, we let the sun going inside the house. We also the ventilation, and also we can use it the mezzanino and the terrace of the new intervention here that we construct with all the materials of the demolition. This is a mezzanino. These are the bricks, the broken bricks here in the walls, in the floor. Also here you can see the bricks that doesn't broke are here to up the wall to the new roof. I think I really like this this work of Le Corbusier, the also found atelier, because the fluid space, you know. I try to do that or something like that, no. It's an only space that have a sort of equipment like the door that let the close or make this or let this fluid space. This is the interspace or the gallery, and that is when the room is closed and have a door of 2.4 and plus 2.4 with the TV to use it in both spaces. This is an image from the bathroom. It's all connected. This is an image from the mezzanino. This used to be this now because when born my son Lorenzo, we have to make some things to the security to do this. This used to be my office, my workshop. Now is the Lorenzo room. Also have a lot of mechanism to make this fluid space, no, to contact with the outside. There are a lot of experiments. These glasses are all of recycled glasses, waste material. We make a big door with a counterweight here of concrete to make happen this aperture. No? We also reutilized a lot of material, all the existing woods, what of very strong wood of lapacho. When the parts were in bad condition, we cut and we use it as a suspender when have 2.40 meters, and as a stair when have 80 centimeters, or when have 15 centimeters as a column. This is the column with system of Julio pretensado, pretension. I don't know how to say. If understand.
Question.
Pretension is called. Okay.
Let me see. Pre-stress. It's a pre-stress column.
There are the stairs with the reutilized wood, and the terrace will have a lot of sun. It was difficult to have a lot of plants, so we make continue the roof, but without roof. Only continue the structure of the roof, the same hyperbolic paraboloid, but without roof, only for the plants. I really like to buy demolitions waste because we can find very good wood, very dry, and very cheap. No? So I have. But when we buy this kind of stuff, you have to use it the measure you buy. No, you can project with them. You have to buy it, and then you can do the project. And I really like the Japanese carpenters. I used to see to watch a lot of research a little, not a lot, but a little. Also, there is other thing, the ox yoke. the ox yoke. This is a artwork of a Paraguayan artist. And I have a mix. I make a mix of the ox yoke and a pseudo Jupiter rate of the Japanese carpenter to make this piece, because all the suspenders woods I bought have 4.20 meters, and I need 9 meters long. So I bought a lot. I cut in the half, make the ox yoke, and make this union to the 9 meter I need. This is the proof. Have 7 centimeters of deformation. So I remember this work of Leverance, this magic work of Leverance in the flowers kiosk. Try to make something like that. Huh? Use this strategy to correct, to correct the deformation. No, we make a structure of tension to correct the deformation. All the stuff is not previously project. These things are in the way, no? In the way when we knew the problems, we try to make the problems part of the project and going on. There is another problems in my house. We have flood. This broken wall was made by the flood, like that. I am in some part of the city that have a lot of water when the storms. We have used to have 1 meter sometimes of water, and with a lot of force. We have to make a wall, concrete wall, to stop the car, to try to control the flood, because it's impossible to avoid the flood. So only we can try to control with a lot of channels in my house to try to stop the force of this. The copy paste here is for Carlos Carpa, is obviously. Here I utilize known material, not unknown materials, but we have to make a lot of things with the same project. No, we make 4 things in one way: the wall, the pool. There is a retaining wall, because in my house there is a storm drain channel in the other side, and also we make a concrete slab for my future office, and it's like that. No, this is the retaining wall with this form, because here above here is the storm drain channel, and I can't put columns. This is the only part I can apoyar, put the structure. So I make this form, also because the water comes here from here, and to protect the columns. No, these are the columns. And it's basically is that this is the structure of my future office. It's 10 meters plus 4, and have a support here in the center. Have 5 meters of cantilever, and here have a counterweight to balance the structure. There is a pool. There is here's the channel, the drain channel. Here is another resource, no, the light. Some friends don't like that I put a roof in my pool, but in Paraguay there is a lot of hot, plenty of hot, so 45 degrees sometimes. So I put a roof, but if we think a little, we can make the things happen like that. No, I have a roof, but I have a lot of sun in the pool. There is the third one. There are four words that will show you. This is the agujero de Bisoca. It's called the hole of Bisoca. Bisoca was an actor. This is a word that with a lot of ingredients, no? In the context of the Bienal Iberoamericana de Arquitectura y Urbanismo, the BIAU, that was made in Paraguay the last year. The Taller E is a classroom of project in the National University. The Escuela Taller de Asunción, that is a labor school. And some architects and friends, Nicolás, Javier, Sergio, and Guido, that we also teach together. I think the name, the Hall of Bisoca, is the name the actor used to call of his house. He say, I'm going to my hall. I think, okay, what's the logic of the hall? No, if we put the hall in architectural plans, it's a section and a plan. The most interesting thing of the hall is the limit, no? And this is a plan of the neighborhood, the Chacarita. Chacarita is a neighborhood in the city of Asunción, in the old part of the city, the foundational part of the city, place of the city, and between the river, and have a lot of poverty here, but more than poverty, different ways to live, no? They live like that, and this is the formal city, and this place is in between, no? In the limits, like that. This is a center, the historic center of Asunción. This is la parte alta, the high Chacarita, and here is the low Chacarita between next to the river. And this is the present now. This is the house where lived Zulma, used to work with Rubén Bisocolán, the actor. And the house is in this context, no? This is like the Chacarita have it's a place forget for the statement, no? With a lot of garbage, with a lot of needs, with a lot of people. This is the situation of the house. Was close to going down with a very bad condition structure. This is the past, the past owner, no, the Rubén Bisocolán, the actor, and this is his daughter, Lumei, is the future, no? He's the owner now, and we present one image to Lumei. We present this, a collage, a trans-urban project, and we ask her to make something not impossible, but quite impossible, because the common thing is that the public spaces convert to private spaces. In the capitalistic world, this is the more common. We want to make in the reverse, no? make a private place convert in a public space. Space. This is what we offered to her. Basically, this is the plan. This is a street. We propose to convert this private place in for 5 years, exchange with the, because of the mejoras, reforma. With the reforms, try to make, to put the street into the place, no? All, it's a continuation of the street, to make a cultural center, a community center for the neighborhood. We have had zero budget, zero material, zero labor, zero fees, zero. With this we start. With this we think, how can we make a project with zero, and start with with something what all of us have, that is the tongue, no, the mouth, the words, to say, to contagious ideas. ¿Se entiende? And this is the situation, the common strategies of this here in places like the Chacarita, no, with ONG that came to here with a lot of money, or a lot of like BID, Unit Nation, etc. And they offer things like that, no? A place of 19 square meters. This is very shame for me. They offer financial plans with a 14.5%, 21%. I don't know how it's in USA, but in here is fraud. This is fraud. Also, they stigmatize the poverty. All these images are from the web of Habitat para la Humanidad. They say that this is wrong and this is well. I really drive crazy, no? I really can't understand here. And we try to do other thing, because all the people in this neighborhood used to listen that kind of solution that never came. So we had to going there with a lot of care, and try to demolish some myths, no? The Chacarita is impenetrable, is another city, but it's in the city. The architect must wait seated for the orders to arrive, except competition. And the architect is a luxury. It's only possible with money. That, because all this was part of a classroom. So we told to the students that we can going to search the orders, and without money, with other logic, with self-management. This is like the Biao contract me to the curator of the Biao in Asunción, and have to make the pavilion of Paraguay. They send me 1,000 euros. With 1,000 euros, not a lot possible. Also, I have to make an exposition. I call a friend, Javier Rodriguez Alcalá, and other friends, architects and teachers, with the classroom of the student of the second year of the career. We make a project between March and July, and we make the work in between August and September with the first part of the work, and also call the Escuela Taller, this labor school, and volunteers. We make an academic project, organize the people, making plans where there are no plans. They are very, very young. They are in the first semester of the second year of the career. Make all the stuff. And when in the Biennale call us, all the architects to do the interview, we go in with mask of Bisoka, and because there are a lot of people that involve, not only the architects. We try to dilute the outer figure, and this is the image we sent to the Biennale of the architect, because more than 60 people are part of the project or the construction. There are a lot of things we know, we learn here. This was all the part of the labor, the knowledge, no? And then the materials, we make barter or exchange for the material. For example, with the National Electricity Enterprise, they give us 2 towers. Like that, we start to systematize this, classify what the material we receive. Also, we receive a lot of waste material of works. There are the plans. We make exchange. We exchange this windows structure for these ones that are better for us for a columns. We enjoy a lot. No, we enjoy, and we practice architecture, practice counterweight with the students, and with the only way to deliver these 6-meter beams wood beams, and the make expense we spend with what in delivery, no, because all the material, well, by exchange, we mouth to mouth, we really make this happen, no? Receive rest of works, wood, iron, something like that. We make a ruble burial because we can't spend money to take off the ruble. Systematize the waste. We adapt the project plans we make with the students to existing material, because the project we make before. All the architects and the teacher who were involved have our office and don't have time to go into the work, so we make an office by WhatsApp. No, this is how we do. These are volunteers, student volunteers, the labor school. You know the difference, no? The labor school have a helmet, and the architecture student haven't got. The plans we going all the time. We redesign the work, no? Make different plans all the time, and take decisions all time. This is more or less the situation, the final situation. The work is not finished yet, but there is we reinvent construction system, utilize this, that it use it for make tension, and we use it as a compression to put the roof up because was going down. We make structure models one-to-one to the measures. We made a steel deck. I call steel deck criollo because we utilize iron sheets waste reutilized woods. These are the profiles donate, and we make a new version of the steel deck. This is, for example, is a description of a Lapacho wood column amended with galvanized profile of high voltage poles as a roof structure and wall reinforcement. We joke, but like they, you know, and a new ways to name the materials. These are the budgets, no? Here in the first part of the work, we spent more or less than $5,000. And this is the asado, is a barbecue, is a more important spend because a lot of people work at night, work a lot. The only way how we can pay them is with energy, no? With some space to the para festejar, to celebrate, no? This is the final place. We take off the mezzanino here to make a double height place to cultural things. This is the exposition of architecture in the Biennale. There is a bridge that crosses between the terrace and the space, no? Again, Carlos Carpa and Castelvecchio. This was the exposition again with the people, with a lot of people. In a second part, we make a workshop with students from constructed details. We redesign after the work, continue with a new structure, the bathroom, other resources. This is a capacitation with an enterprise that give us material with a cheap price because of the capacitation. There are a lot of draw of Marta Rico that is an exchange internship like that, fabulous. These are the real, and she draw after because we didn't have a lot of straw. This is with the second and third part finished. It's not finished yet, but we spent more or less $11,500. But see, if we put price to the other budgets, the intangible resources, it's more or less $65,000. A lot of people that work here, but they work in an academic way, and we find a lot of materials that we make possible. Don't spend this money. I don't say that I can't say that we make all the stuff, all the work with this amount. This is the economic part. There is another part that is intangible. No? There is a theater, opera theater, that we make a barter of the air conditioner for the use of the space. We have a book launch with for books. We have community meetings. Now because of the pandemic, we stopped a lot of activities, we are expecting to going again. Okay, this is the last one. This is the more personal work I do. It's called, we call Hummingbird Shelter because a lot of things, no? My mom have a lot of orchids. She really liked the orchids. And my brother, Paco, who passed away, used to give every time orchid to my mother, every Mother's Day, every birthday. And she really have a lot of them, different class, colors. And and we have, my parents, my family have a place in San Bernardino, in a nice place near to the lake, but in not a mountain, but it's a place, a high place, with a lot of trees, plenty of trees. No, it's a very nice place with stones, with a lot of nature, different kind of nature. No, so we want to think think a place to these orchids. No, before I want to tell some things. How is the context in the climate in Paraguay? We have heavy storms, really heavy storms, like that. This is typically, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times per year, maybe. We also have, this year have forest fires, very bad. This is in the place my family have in San Bernardino. A lot of part of the wood was have fire. Also, we have a lot of deforestation in Paraguay. These are an image of the Chaco Paraguayo. Also, the contrabando is black market of trees, no? And also have an informal industry of the firewood. It's called meter because they put all in a meter. Sometimes are woods that going down. Sometimes are trees that they cut. But this informal industry exists because of the lot of ceramic industry. They used a lot of firewood. I really like the always I really admire the pile of firewoods. No, I really enjoy how are kind different in different parts of the world. This is in Paraguay. I remember the Swiss pavilion of Peter Zumthor. No? I really like. So we make a mix, no, with the firewood and the technique of compress of Peter Zumthor, because I think that maybe is another destiny to the firewoods, to the tree that going down, to the tree who was fired. Maybe we can give them another destiny, another future. And if we mix this firewood wall of firewood and the orchids, we maybe can we can have orchidiary, a place for orchids. We start to make some proof like that with the techniques, with the old techniques, with the new materials, and the result is something like that. We make a symbolic space for my family. No, this is not a common place. Maybe it's a place for the hummingbirds, a place for the orchids. There are all the orchids, and we make this place. We build a big table. I really like the quotes because I think if I have to name the architect I admire, then this is a mix. This table is a mix with Smiljan Radic and Javier Corbalam. It's a 5 meters table of stone. We reutilize a lot of things like that. The sink. This is the place for the barbecue, waiting for the barbecue. We used water heaters to make the lamps, where make the sink. We make some windows like Donald Judd, inspired in Donald Judd. Like here's the barbecue. Here's my father cooking. We put a roof because it's for the shadow, because of the sun. On the other side, this is from the pool. We are finished now. Are finishing a little pool. This is the mask my mother put to the orchids that are waiting the hummingbirds. This is a place to remember our deads, our angels. A place to commemorate. Is a custom of my family that we celebrate or commemorate the days of our people, all the birthdays, the death days, no. So this is a place for we are still alive, who are still alive, and to commemorate the life. Thank you.
Everybody, please don't hesitate to load up questions in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll make sure that the questions are put forward for Lukas. Thank you.
I can start with a question, Marcus. That's okay. Lucas, gracias. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us. Something that really strikes me is how important it's for the design process, the participation of students. Can you talk us a little bit more about that? How students are involved in some of your projects, is that part of the academic process, or is that something that just happens? Can you say something about that?
I think I grow up architecture with Javier Corbalam from when I was young. I'm heritage. Some system, no? There is not difference between the work and and teaching, no? The academic way. We teach as we work, and we work as we teach. I think this is an impossible divorce, no, of these things, because I think we make some kind of research for our works, for some fun works. For research is necessary to involve a lot of people. It's impossible to make in only way. No? When I have another works that I make in constructions with students in the university, but I like to show the Agujero de Bisoca because it's the mix, no? It's the real mix, because it's not only academic, it's not only a common work with a client, no? It was a lot of stuff involved, no? A biennale, a neighborhood, community, students, and other students like from the Escuela Taller de Asunción, with other kind of knowledge, no? Because they have a phrase, no? They learn working, and we learn a lot of from they. So I don't know how to answer to respond to this answer, but I think it's I try to not make a lot of difference, no? I all time surrounded by students, no? We call students, or students call us to work with us after they are class with us, make some concurso arquitectura.
Contest. You organize contests with the students.
Or some kind of works. I think it's a process that never finish, no? And so it's very naturally that involve students. I think in my work is very necessary.
Marcus, I think we have a follow-up question. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm saying, Blanche, I'm going to turn on your mic and you can ask your question as you wish, okay? I'm going to try and do that now. Give me a second here.
Okay. Sí, puedo leer, pero no sé cuál va a leer. La última. Blanca Tarabella.
Okay, Blanche, go ahead.
Hi, I'm an MArch second year student, and I just want to thank you for sharing your projects. I really was inspired by them, how you took such low budgets and impacted the community and got them involved. Going off of Julio's question, does getting the students involved and the community involved inspire them more? Do you see them more becoming architects and designers of the people that are helping you to more positively impact their communities?
Con este tipo de cosas. I don't know if they going to going to have a more impact. But I try to show that it's another ways to do architecture. Because for the common ways, there are plenty of architects, no? But there are not a lot of there are a lot of, maybe it's different in the, depends on the country, no? But there are less architecture for the very needs. I don't know how to say. The architecture is quite snob, no? It's common to associate the architecture to the luxury, and I think that architecture no debe ser, shouldn't be a luxury, shouldn't be a need, because we some kind of knowledge, we can make a lot of changes, no? We try to show this kind of projects, of the kind, not project, we this kind of way to go into a project, for maybe the student have one way more, no? One way different than the common ways we learn in university. I try to not all this stuff we make with all the time, we make it with student, because in the university we have some structure. Sometimes we do these kind of things parallel to the university, no? With a student, but with parallel of the university. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Marcus, there's questions in the Q&A.
Yes, I'm going to read one now from Jordan Swartz. The question is, during the design build process, do you find yourself ever hunting for the perfect found object, or are most of the building materials found first and then the design ensues?
So this is in the chat.
It's in the Q&A.
Pregunta y respuesta. Okay. During the design build process, do you find yourself ever hunting from the perfect found object, or are most of the building material found first and then design used? I think the second, no? I don't think like a perfect object of a perfect. I really like the imperfection. I really like the contamination of things, no, of thoughts. I really like when I think or project one thing and finally it's another. I think it's a the word is not, it's not a fight, no, it's a conversation, no? It's a conversation with the talk and the material, the material who are close by at hand. More times, I have some need and some materials, and then we start to start this conversation, making the projects with a lot of ¿cómo se diría cuando como it's not on an only way, no? Have a lot of options, no? But
Another question?
The other question, Javier Rodriguez, Reman City Square speaks both of the possibilities of an alternative design and of the absolute absence of the state in urban public facility. In this sense, what would be the real limit, the possibilities of the alternative proposal as a whole in terms of covering the existing deficits in the city in Paraguay? In other words, to what extent can architecture solve certain social problems? I think architecture can make part of or try to solve certain part of these problems. No, not all. I think the using tires is not a good way to recycle tires. The best way are from the own industry. With 15 millions or more tires in Paraguay, is I use it 1,500, it's nothing. I think that is like a manifesto, but it's not the way. The way is use it, make a state program to use the tires in the industry to make a lot of other things. I don't, with this kind of projects like Remancito, function like a manifesto. I don't think function like really solve the problem. Maybe make more visible the problem that the state is absent and other ways are possible, but because of the scale of the project and also I think we can't charge with that responsibility, no? But we can be part with a lot of other people of the problem. Espectador Anónimo. Have you been involved in public housing project? Yes, I recently finally a big project of public housing that we put a lot of ingredients of the ecosystemic urbanism of Salvador Rueda, but I think it's another lecture.
Lucas, there is one more question from Javier Rodriguez, but I want to add something to that question. He's asking what will be the scope of your architecture in contemporary Paraguayan architecture as a whole. But I want to add something to that, and I want to refer to what is happening in Latin America in the architecture scene. So what will be the scope of your work within the Latin American context? Are there other architects that you find are doing something similar that you do, and how this connect? La relación con Latinoamérica. ¿Cuál es la relación con el resto de Latinoamérica? ¿Hay gente haciendo cosas parecidas a las que vos haces?
I think there is a lot of people. I really don't like a lot of Paraguayan architecture. I prefer to call that Latin American architecture or regional, because first, most of us we make non-ancestral architecture. We make an international architecture. We learn, we study like as international architecture, no? All the modernism, all the universities in the world, most of the universities in the world teach us the modernism. Each one in each country, in each university, make with that what can can we do? Make, ¿cómo se dice lo que puede? Make the best we can with that information. In Latin America, we have a lot of things that we are parents, no? We have the same poverty, the same needs, the same state absent, injustice, asymmetric situation, social situation. So we have similar problems in Latin America. So I think we have similar solutions, no? In architecture, similar, not obviously not are not all the same thing, but more or less we have a background context that unify us. Most of them are we are I have a lot of friends that have, I think, the similar vision of the architecture, that with this kind of thing, I told that architecture is not a luxury, that we have to find another way to do the things with other material, with other strategies, with other way. Maybe we need to have another way to teach architecture. Maybe this, I think, and also is the future. We have to teach different, no? Because we have another needs, another situations, and also I think it's similar in Latin America. This need to enjoy the work. There is some kind of humor, no? Some kind of enjoyness of making things. Take off a little of the solemnidad. ¿Cómo se dice solemnidad, Julio?
Solemnity, I think.
Take off a little of solemnity, no?
Of the seriousness of the work.
The seriousness of the work. But for enjoy the profession, no?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yes, you did. Perfecto.
There's a question from Darla Lindberg in the chat, and I'll read it for you. First of all, she says, thank you, Lukas. Very inspiring. Love the elegance, the restraint, the engineering, and the thoughtful reuse of materials. What would you do with a large budget?
Thank you, Lukas. Very inspiring. Love the elegance, the restraint, the engineering, and the thought use. What would you do with large budget? I don't know. Both a lot of wine and barbecue. I don't know. I don't say no to the large budget, but depends for what, no? $20,000 in the Plaza of Remancito was a large budget to make up 30 meters square meters. Con ellos. Ah, con Penn State Labor.
Con estudiantes de Penn State se refiere.
What we can do with the Penn State Labor? I don't know. A lot of things. More or little. What would you do with a large Penn State Labor? I don't know how is the labor of Penn State. Julio Kahn told me if they know with the herramientas, with the
highly creative.
Okay, highly creative. Okay.
Yeah, muy creativo.
So I really want to know how we can do.
Miguel, did you have a question? I couldn't tell if your hand was going up or not.
Yeah, I do. Great work. Thank you. Thanks for the lecture. So you, in response to one of the questions, you said that the work is a manifesto. And it got me to think that manifestos are generally meant to bring other people into the world of the manifesto, to encourage other people to think like the manifesto. So they have a kind of attraction that the hope is that others will join.
Okay.
Do you hope or feel like this kind of work as a manifesto should attract a lot of other people? And if everybody's doing this kind of work, would you be happy or would you do something else?
And I don't know if this kind of work should attract people. I think there is some people that need this kind of work to be to attract for enjoy the profession, no? I think is all the people make something like that. Yes, we're going to think another thing. No? If the manifesto is going to common, I think need to reborn. I don't know if I do. Sometimes for some works I think function like a manifesto, but I really like when people take this this kind of work, la light, no, and a way to do other things. But I don't know if it function like that. The interesting it will be that the people or that kind of thing serves to the state or the community to reclaim better or more resources to ¿cómo se dice mejorar? Improve the way of life, no? Improve the public space. It is served to do. I think will be wonderful, no? But if all of them, all of us, we make this, va a perder sentido, lost sense, no? I think. Sorry, my English.
Thank you. That was good. I mean, one of the things I was also thinking is that there are two components in the work. One is the strategy for making the work, which involves people and recycling of material, which may be independent from the work itself. So we have people who work in different manners, different styles, they make different kinds of spaces. And so I think the strategy in your work may be transferable. So other people may start also to use recycled materials, use kind of self labor in a way, but there's also the spatial sensitivity, the light, the material, the texture, all of those things belong to you as an architect, which are beyond the strategy of utilizing labor that's local and available and material that's recycled. So it's not really a question. I'm just trying to figure things out by talking with you. Thank you for engaging us. Thank you.
And thank you for your words.
Okay, we're into that area where I think this is a symptom of these Zoom lectures, but it feels like we could just talk all night. And certainly, I think the work is so rich and so engaging that, you know, from my point of view, this is a nice introduction between Lukas and Penn State. And I hope we can have you back in the future in person to do a workshop or to kind of do something, because from my perspective, many of the things that you're interested in and sort of evident in the work, we have similar interests, and we're doing similar things, maybe in the Pennsylvania manner or maybe in the manner of North Americans. And it would just be great to continue the dialogue through making and through enjoying each other's company, and of course through barbecue. So wonderful introduction tonight, and thank you so much for sharing your work. I hope you're reading the chat, because there's some great things in the chat in terms of people and their reaction to the lecture. So thank you so much, and thank you all for taking this lecture right up close to the 8 o'clock hour tonight. Thank you.
And thank you, Paloma, for all the translation. Thank you, Lukas. Have a good night.
Thank you, Marcus, and Merad, and Julio, and it will be a pleasure. It will be a pleasure to go in to you.
Thank you so much.